Hello, I'm Ashley, and welcome to my channel. If you don't know me, I'm a ship shopper, and have been for the past 2 years in Detroit. I enjoy sharing my outlook on life in my videos. Chef Do Budget helps me in the kitchen with cooking hacks, and I have some pretty big goals. I want to own a tiny house on wheels and live my best happy life, which includes a lot of pop culture and media. For the month of November, I focus on celebrating families in all types of media. Books, movies, TV shows, video games, and sometimes art. So I'm going to start with books. Last year I read a short story, Everything I Never Told You. It was about some dysfunction within a family and how that affected one of the children. But the best one I read last year was The Guest Book. Now this one goes through multiple generations of this old money family. They have a vacation home on an island. They literally take a boat there. They have groceries rowed in there in a boat out to them. But the latest generation can't afford to keep the house. So they're kind of deciding what to do with it. And it shows the history of the family in flashbacks, and everybody signs up the guest book. So there are a few twists within it that make it a very interesting read. I have 4 books that I'm looking forward to reading this month. So, The Lions of Fifth Avenue. This is set in 1913. The main character is Laura Lyon. She is married to the superintendent of the New York Public Library. She has 2 kids, living a glamorous life in New York, but obviously she needs something more than that to sustain her happiness. So she goes to journalism school. She joins this women's club called Heterodoxy, and then some valuables get stolen from the library, and they have to deal with that. It also flashes forward 80 years in the future when her granddaughter is a curator for the same library, and some things start to go missing. So I think that it'll be partly mystery, but also very interesting to see generations living in New York, working at the library, and how it will turn out. So I've got another one for you. Real Men Knit. Now this is the story of a foster mom who adopts 4 boys, but then passes away. So she owns a knitting shop, and now the 4 kids have to figure out what to do with it. 3 of them would rather get rid of it, but our main character, Jessie, wants to save it. And there's a bit of a romance story within this. I'm not put off by the reviews that people didn't really like the romance story, because I'm more reading about, the family point of view. Will there be stories about how these kids grew up and who the mom was, because it sounds like she was a very community-oriented person. Those are always very interesting stories to read about, and who could turn down the tagline, Real Men Knit? The one I'm most looking forward to reading this month is The Floating Feldmans. So this is the story. Our narrator is a grandma turning 70. She is going on a cruise with her family that consists of her son and daughter, and I believe it's the daughter that has 2 teenage kids. There's going to be a lot of conflict when families get together in enclosed spaces and might have to deal with childhood issues, with parents. I think it's going to be a very interesting read. And cruises are really fun. I really do miss that as a vacation option right now. So that's another reason I'm looking forward to reading it. And I've got one set in Detroit for you guys, The Turner House. So this is about the father, Francis, the mother, Viola. They move from Arkansas to Detroit. They buy a house. They raise 13 kids in this house. And then Francis dies. And Viola's getting old. She moves in with her oldest. And the kids have to decide what to do with the house, right? Viola's gonna insist, no, I want to keep it. Don't get rid of my house. I'm sure she's a lot of ownership of it. But the kids obviously don't want to live in that house, or they would be. So I can see why they want to get rid of it. I think that will be a very interesting story. Maybe a little heartbreaking. It does seem more of a serious one. I think a lot of family-oriented stories use humor to kind of offset from the seriousness, because I think we can get a little too personal with the conflicts within our own family relationships. So I hope to get to all of these this month. But that's kind of hard when the theme of family is so vague and there are so many movies and TV shows that could fit into this genre. So last year I watched Coco, and if you have not seen this movie, go watch it right now. It's so amazing. Because my boyfriend and I are both ship shoppers, we've agreed to watch Superstore on top of the new supermarket sweep. And we also love Bob's Burgers. I do have the coloring book. I'll be working on that. And This Is Us, the 5th season, just popped up on Hulu. I'll be watching that. Last year we also enjoyed 2 seasons of Splitting Up Together. That was a good one. For this month, my favorite kind of movies to watch are like Yours, Mine, and Ours, Cheaper by the Dozen, which also has a sequel, and there's just an infinite amount of TV shows. So I'll list a few. Full House, Rugrats, The Wild Thornberrys, Hey Arnold, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Sister Sister, The Goldbergs, Blackish, Single Parents, Atypical, Speechless, Bless This Mess, and I do want to give a shout out to The American Housewife. Now, this one isn't binge-worthy. The plot's not anything crazy, but the characters are very interesting. If it's something that pops up on cable when there's nothing else to watch, I would watch it. You will be entertained. You know, it really brings me back to like the good old Disney days and Hannah Montana. Yeah, that's another one we can add to this list. You know, I remember growing up, my mom worked nights and my dad worked mornings. So my dad would be at work when my mom would come home, and she would wake us up for school and get us there. And then she would sleep all day. She would have breakfast about the time we would get home from school. And then she would cook dinner. My dad would come home, and she would make sure we had our homework done and we were like tucked into bed before she went to work at 10 p.m. My parents are not really cooks, so meals were always very simple, like meat and sides of potatoes and vegetables, sometimes oven or stovetop, sometimes grilled. But eating dinner together always seemed so important. It's the one time of day all our schedules were aligned. Even though my parents never said it, it seemed like this unspoken rule that it's important. And these unspoken rules develop how you see the world and what's important to you. And that's why I celebrate family this month and dive into those stories of childhoods and relationships between family members, personalities. Sometimes there's just good plots and stories along the way, and these conflict resolutions that we love to see in stories all the time. That also includes games. Some of my favorite games for this theme include Animal Crossing, if you're not sick of it yet, Harvest Moon, which I have so many iterations, and I've not finished a single one. And there's kind of similar games like Stardew Valley, and I'm the biggest Sims fan. But, I mean, if you actually like finishing your video games, maybe you should just talk to Brian.
Alrighty, so, honestly, the number one family game that I played last year was Unravel 2. It's a bit of an unconventional one because you play as two little people made out of yarn. The previous one, Unravel, was just a single-player game, but Unravel 2, you cooperate with another person, and you can use little like segments of yarn as grappling hooks, and you can do all sorts of other crazy things throughout the game. And it's pretty visually stunning too. But then there's some other good single-player family games like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, The Last of Us, which is a PlayStation exclusive. Life is Strange is on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. That's a really good one. It's a bit more of a walking simulator, but that one's really sweet. There's a bunch of other family games out there, but those happen to be my personal favorites.
So let me know what you're reading, watching, playing, or crafting this month, and keep enjoying your pumpkin spice.
If it isn't already sold out.
And I'll catch you later with a book review.